At 11:47 p.m. on August 3, 2016, Noise Compliance Officer Sarah Chen stood on the corner of 5th and Elm in Portland, Oregon, holding a decibel meter that registered sounds she couldn't identify. Low frequency, rhythmic, coming from beneath the street, not traffic, not construction, not machinery. The reading showed 42 decibels at ground level, well below nuisance thresholds. But residents had been calling the city for 6 weeks, complaining about vibrations that rattled windows, humming that prevented sleep, and a sensation described repeatedly as the ground breathing. Chen was 34 years old, had investigated 1,200 noise complaints in 7 years, and she'd never encountered anything like this. The sound was real, the source was invisible, and in 3 months, the investigation would reveal that Portland's downtown was built on top of 12 miles of tunnels that had been forgotten so completely that even city engineers didn't know they existed. This is the story of how mysterious sounds revealed hidden infrastructure, how an entire tunnel network vanished from institutional memory, and how sometimes the city beneath the city makes itself known in ways nobody expects. The first complaint came on June 14, 2016. Marianne Fletcher, resident of the Morrison Building, called Portland's non-emergency line at 2:34 a.m., reporting a humming sound in her apartment. The dispatcher classified it as a noise complaint and logged it. The second complaint came 3 hours later from the same building, different apartment. By June 17th, the city had received 23 calls from Morrison Building residents, all describing the same phenomenon. Low-frequency sound, strongest at night, seeming to come from the walls and floor rather than any external source. The building manager, David Torres, hired an acoustics consultant on June 20th. The consultant spent 2 days testing for mechanical noise, HVAC systems, elevator motors, water pumps. Everything tested normal. The consultant's report concluded that the sound was environmental in origin, source undetermined. The complaints continued. By July 1st, residents from 3 other buildings within a 2-block radius were reporting similar experiences. The city assigned Chen to investigate. Chen began with the obvious sources. She checked construction permits. No active work in the area. She contacted utility companies. No maintenance operations. No unusual equipment running. She surveyed the affected zone and noticed the pattern. The complaints clustered around a specific area, 4 blocks bounded by 3rd Street, 7th Street, Morrison, and Burnside. Within that zone, the sounds were consistent. Outside it, nothing. That suggested a localized source, not city-wide infrastructure like the water system or electrical grid. On August 3rd, Chen brought specialized equipment, a geophone array designed to detect underground vibrations, typically used for seismic monitoring. She placed sensors at 8 locations within the affected zone and ran tests over 24 hours. The results were striking. The vibrations originated from approximately 40 feet below street level. They occurred in patterns, strongest between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., weakest during daytime hours. The frequency was consistent, 18 to 24 Hz, below the range of normal human hearing, but within the range that causes vibration perception and structural resonance in buildings. Chen presented her findings to the city engineering department on August 5th. The engineers reviewed underground utility maps for the area, water mains, sewage lines, electrical conduits, telecommunication cables. Everything was mapped and accounted for. Nothing at 40 feet depth explained vibrations of this frequency and pattern. One engineer, Marcus Webb, 52, suggested checking historical records. Portland's downtown had been rebuilt multiple times since the 1800s. There might be abandoned infrastructure nobody had documented in modern databases. The city archive search began on August 8th. Webb and city archivist Linda Kowalski examined records dating back to Portland's founding. They found standard documentation, street construction, building permits, utility installations. On August 12th, Kowalski discovered something unusual, a reference in an 1889 civil engineering journal to the Portland Underground, a series of passages built to handle drainage and allow underground commerce during the city's rapid expansion. The journal described 14 miles of brick-lined tunnels connecting basements throughout downtown. Webb had never heard of this system. He'd worked for Portland's engineering department for 28 years, reviewed every piece of infrastructure documentation as part of his training. The tunnels weren't on any map he'd seen. Kowalski found additional references, construction records from 1891, maintenance logs from 1903, a city council report from 1912 discussing tunnel flooding issues. Then nothing. No records after 1920. The tunnels had simply disappeared from documentation. The question became, were the tunnels still there? Kowalski found the answer in a 1917 city planning document describing tunnel closures. During World War I, Portland had sealed many tunnel entrances due to security concerns and prohibited on enforcement. The document indicated most tunnels were permanently sealed, but didn't specify complete filling or destruction. If the tunnels had been sealed rather than demolished, they would still exist underground, empty and forgotten. Webb organized an exploratory survey on August 15th. The team used ground-penetrating radar to scan beneath the streets in the complaint zone. The radar showed what appeared to be hollow spaces at depths between 35 and 45 feet, brick structures forming connected passages. The tunnels were real, they were extensive, and they'd been unmapped for 96 years. On August 19th, the team located an access point. During utility work beneath 3rd Street, workers found a sealed brick wall that radar suggested was a tunnel entrance. Webb ordered careful excavation. On August 22nd at 3:47 p.m., they broke through. Behind the wall was a brick-lined passage, 8 feet high, 6 feet wide, extending in both directions into darkness. The air smelled of damp earth and old mortar. The brickwork was intact, remarkably well preserved, despite nearly a century of abandonment. The exploration began immediately. Webb's team, wearing breathing apparatus and safety equipment, mapped 2.3 miles of tunnel in the first survey. The passages connected building basements, formed larger junctions at major intersections, and included side chambers that appeared to have been used for storage or utilities. Everything was dry, structurally sound, and completely empty except for debris that had fallen from sealed entrances. The tunnels explained the sounds. The passages created acoustic chambers that amplified low-frequency vibrations from the city above. Traffic, building operations, and particularly subway trains passing nearby created vibrations that resonated through the tunnel system. The sealed nature of the tunnels meant these vibrations had nowhere to dissipate. They reflected back and forth, creating standing waves that transferred energy to building foundations within the zone. The effect was strongest at night, when ambient noise was lower, and resonant frequencies became more noticeable. Chen's acoustic analysis confirmed this. She placed sensors inside the tunnels and recorded vibration patterns that matched exactly what residents reported. The breathing sensation occurred when multiple vibration frequencies aligned, creating periodic intensity increases. The tunnels weren't producing sound. They were amplifying and distributing vibrations in ways that made them perceivable to residents who happened to live in buildings connected to the tunnel system. The discovery raised a fundamental question. How had 12 miles of tunnels been completely forgotten? Webb investigated the institutional memory gap. The tunnels had been built between 1885 and 1910 during Portland's rapid expansion. They served multiple purposes: drainage, storage, and providing passage for deliveries and commerce during rainy seasons when street-level conditions were difficult. The system was extensive, well-engineered, and actively used until approximately 1920. The disappearance from records occurred during multiple overlapping processes. First, prohibition enforcement in the 1920s led to tunnel closures to prevent illegal alcohol operations. Many entrances were sealed, and the city stopped maintaining records of the system to avoid creating maps that bootleggers could use. Second, the 1930s saw major infrastructure modernization. New sewage systems, improved storm drains, and underground utilities that made the old tunnels redundant. Third, World War II brought a purge of unnecessary city records to save paper and storage space. Documents about abandoned infrastructure were low priority and were discarded. By 1950, nobody in city engineering had worked on the tunnel system. The institutional knowledge had retired or died. New engineers learned from existing documentation, which no longer included the tunnels. The physical infrastructure remained, but knowledge of its existence vanished. The tunnels became invisible, not destroyed, just forgotten. The 2016 rediscovery prompted a comprehensive survey. Between August and December 2016, the city mapped 11.7 miles of accessible tunnels. Some sections had collapsed, a few were flooded, but most remained structurally intact. The survey revealed fascinating details. Original 1889 construction dates carved into brickwork, intact gas lamp fixtures from the 1890s, and even century-old advertisements painted on tunnel walls. The city faced a decision: what to do with the tunnels. Completely filling them would cost an estimated $40 million. Maintaining them as historical structures would require ongoing inspection and preservation funding. Demolition was impractical, given their location beneath occupied buildings. The city chose a middle path: install acoustic dampening materials in sections connected to residential buildings to eliminate the vibration transfer, stabilize structurally questionable sections, and preserve select areas as historical features accessible for tours. The dampening installation began in January 2017. Engineers placed specialized foam and rubber barriers at building connection points, breaking the vibration pathway. By March 2017, resident complaints had stopped. The sounds didn't disappear. The tunnels still resonated, but the acoustic barriers prevented vibration transfer to buildings. The breathing ground fell silent. The historical preservation aspect proved more popular than anticipated. The city opened a quarter-mile section for public tours in September 2017. The Portland Underground tours drew 40,000 visitors in the first year. Visitors walked through passages unchanged since 1889, saw the brick craftsmanship of 19th-century engineers, and learned how entire infrastructure systems can be lost through institutional forgetting. The tours became one of Portland's most popular historical attractions. Sarah Chen's investigation became a case study in urban acoustics and institutional memory. She presented findings at the National Association of Noise Control Engineers Conference in 2018, discussing how forgotten infrastructure can create persistent environmental problems that resist conventional analysis. Her key point: sometimes mysterious urban phenomena aren't caused by what's visible, but by what's been forgotten beneath the surface. Marcus Webb retired in 2020 after 32 years with city engineering. His final project was compiling a comprehensive historical infrastructure database, documenting not just current systems, but abandoned ones that might still exist physically. The database included the tunnel network, old streetcar tunnels, sealed drainage culverts, and foundations from demolished buildings. Webb's argument was simple: infrastructure doesn't disappear when you stop documenting it. It just becomes invisible until something strange sounds, collapses, floods, reminds you it's still there. The Portland tunnels remain beneath the city, most of them sealed and undisturbed. A few sections open for tours, all of them now mapped and monitored. The sounds that led to their rediscovery have faded from memory. Most current residents don't know there were ever complaints, but the tunnels themselves stand as proof that cities have layers, physical and historical, and sometimes those layers make themselves known in unexpected ways. The lesson isn't about tunnels specifically. It's about institutional memory and how easily infrastructure knowledge disappears across generations. Systems built to last centuries can be forgotten in decades if documentation fails and personnel turn over. Portland's tunnels were state-of-the-art in 1889, forgotten by 1940, and rediscovered in 2016, not through archival research, but because residents felt their buildings vibrating at night. Sometimes the past speaks up. Sometimes we just need to listen. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from.